Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going on a really fascinating and honestly kind of intense investigative journey. When we talk about the pharmaceutical industry, we usually obsess over the cutting-edge science of new discoveries. But today, we're looking at the shadows. We're focusing on product integrity. We're going to explore the massive global machinery required to ensure that the medication you take is safe, authentic, and exactly what it claims to be.
I want you to actually think for a second about the physical safety and the true origin of the pills sitting right inside your own home. How safe is the medicine in your cabinet? We trust these products with our lives, right? We just assume they were manufactured perfectly and shipped securely. But behind that little plastic bottle is a vast, highly vulnerable global network.
And the stakes here? They literally couldn't be higher. Fake, substandard, or compromised drugs can lead to catastrophic public health failures. But as modern corporate tracking shows us, these failures also lead to massive financial fallout for the companies involved. Product safety concerns, manufacturing defects, or inadequate disclosure of risks, well, they trigger huge product liability claims, a total loss of public confidence, and severe revenue hits. Systemic failures carry lethal human costs and absolutely massive financial implications.
Okay, let's dive into this investigation. We're going to look at three key areas: the manufacturing threat, the global supply chain, and the counterfeit crisis.
We'll start at the very beginning. Phase 1, the manufacturing threat. Let's look at the escalating scale of enforcement actions taken when a facility violates good manufacturing practices, or GMP. GMP refers to the rigorous standards designed to ensure the proper design, monitoring, and control of manufacturing processes. When companies report on their sustainability and risk, they actually have to disclose the number of enforcement actions taken against them. And it builds like a ladder. It starts with non-compliance violations, issues identified during routine safety inspections. If those aren't fixed, it escalates to warning letters. Then to actual physical product seizures, market recalls, and finally, severe legal actions like consent decrees. Monitoring these violations gives us a really clear window into a company's internal quality control.
Phase 2, the global supply chain.
A company's responsibility absolutely doesn't end at its own factory doors. Managing supply chain quality is essential for protecting consumer health. Sustainability metrics demand that companies rigorously track not just their own factories, but their direct Tier I suppliers. These are the partners that transact directly with the pharma company. A pharmaceutical company might have perfectly sterile practices internally, but if they fail to ensure quality across their entire external supply chain, they face huge disruptions, lost revenue, and massive reputational damage. So, they have to disclose the percentage of both their own facilities and their Tier I suppliers' facilities that are actively participating in strict audit programs. A prime example of this is the RX360 International Pharmaceutical Supply Chain Consortium. This specific third-party audit program, or equivalent external audits, well, they're the gold standard for how the industry ensures the integrity of the supply chain and its raw ingredients. When investors and regulators look at a company, they want to see a very high percentage of facilities participating in programs like RX360 to verify that the supply chain is impenetrable.
Phase 3, the counterfeit drug crisis.
Now, what happens when bad actors try to infiltrate that system? We need to establish exactly what we mean by a counterfeit product. According to industry standards, it's defined as a drug sold under a product name without proper authorization. This applies to both brand name and generic products if the source identity is mislabeled to suggest it's authentic. The crucial and honestly scariest point is that a counterfeit might completely lack the active ingredient, it might have way too much or too little of it, or it might contain the wrong active ingredient altogether. Actually, even a flawless, beautifully replicated box can hide a dangerous substandard pill.
So how do companies fight back? Through absolute traceability. This means tracking, identifying information like chemical composition, production date, and processing history through every single stage. We're talking from raw material sourcing to manufacturing to wholesale distribution, retail, the whole shebang. Companies must detail the methods and technologies they use to maintain this serialization. They often use advanced barcode technology and RFID tagging to trace a drug's every single movement and prevent counterfeiting. And when counterfeits are discovered, companies don't just sit back. They must disclose their specific processes for alerting vulnerable customers, like patients and physicians, as well as business partners to potential risks. Furthermore, they collaborate directly with law enforcement. They track the number of actions that trigger physical raids, product seizures, arrests, and criminal charges.
Phase 4, recalls and adverse events.
Despite all these audits, tags, and raids,
Sometimes the safety net fails. Often, the very first public sign of a systemic failure is a listing in a global pharmacovigilance database, essentially an international watchdog list. Companies track and disclose when their drugs are listed in platforms like the World Health Organization's Vigibase. These public databases flag products in response to indications of potentially serious risks. If a product shows up here, it's a massive red flag.
If an adverse health consequence is identified, it triggers a product safety recall. This is where we see the sheer quantitative scale and financial loss a company faces. Companies must disclose the number of recalls issued and the total units recalled. Just imagine the logistical nightmare and the cost of having to physically hunt down and pull millions of tiny drug units off pharmacy shelves globally. The standards even suggest disclosing the revenues for each recalled product from the 12 months prior, just to accurately measure the staggering financial effects.
But we have to immediately ground these abstract financial metrics in reality. Companies must also disclose this stark human metric, the total number of fatalities associated with all products they manufacture. This includes all fatalities reported during the period. This metric reminds us exactly why these rigorous safety and supply chain standards matter so incredibly much. It is, quite literally, a matter of life and death.
Phase 5, Safe Disposal and Takebacks. Finally, we bring our investigation to the very end of the pill's life cycle. Sustainability accounting requires companies to track the physical weight, in metric tons, of unused products they take back. We aren't just talking about a few bottles here. We're talking about mountains of reclaimed pills, literally equivalent to the weight of commercial airplanes, gathered from consumers or medical facilities. By disclosing the sheer tonnage reclaimed, companies show how they are proactively preventing future liabilities.
Let's look at why these systemic end-of-life take-back programs are so often mandated. Proper disposal is the only way to stop medications from being illegally resold on the black market or abused. Furthermore, it prevents dangerous active chemicals from seeping into our environment and water supplies, ensuring they're destroyed via secure, high-temperature incineration. This effectively and safely closes the loop on the entire medical supply chain.
We've followed the journey from the factory to disposal. We've seen the audits, the barcodes, the recalls, and the massive financial and human stakes involved. So I'll leave you with this final provocative question. If the invisible tracking systems guarding your medication failed tomorrow, would you even know before you took it? It's a vital reminder of the hidden, high-stakes supply chain working around the clock to protect your health every single day. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and stay curious.